Halima.
Hi, how are you?
As I know, you are very, very often in Jewish services.
Yes.
And my question is, what would you recommend, advise, or imagine if Muslim people want to visit a Jewish service for the first time? What could you tell so that that people are a bit prepared what to expect and maybe what to avoid or what's going on? How was it for you? Just I give you the floor to
Well, that depends on
share your experience.
Yeah, that depends on where the Jewish service takes place, right? I assume that this is in Europe somewhere.
Yes, it will be in a German synagogue.
I see. Yes, because in some Muslim people, if they come from Muslim countries, what they might not know is that you don't take off your shoes when you enter a Western European synagogue. You do that in some Eastern countries. You take off your shoes whenever you enter a place of worship, but in Europe you don't. It's just like going into a church, for example.
Yeah, can you, when you imagine your first times or so how is it you enter? What should you wear? How should you behave?
Well, you wear your ordinary clothes, except that men are usually required to wear something on their heads, a head covering. But that's nothing to worry about because they can sometimes be borrowed at the entrance of the synagogue. But you don't the Jewish people, Jewish men at least, they wear a prayer shawl, but this is not for non-Jews to do.
Yeah, and this will be an evening service. This will be a Friday evening service, which I think in this synagogue where we go will be about 1 hour maximum. So it's a shorter service, which is 40 minutes to 1 hour. When you think about the service, are there things which could be familiar from a Muslim point of view, or?
Not really, because what would be familiar? Yeah, like first of all, the things that are not first come the things that are not familiar. Mm-hmm. That's what the men are required to wear something on their heads, and also what Muslims might not be familiar with is that you borrow a prayer book. All the prayers are in the book. And in some synagogues, then the page numbers are announced so that you can follow. And very often the prayer books are in 2 languages. They are in Hebrew because most of the prayers are in Hebrew, like ours are in Arabic. But then there's also a translation. And now if that is an evening service, the evening service starts with a number of psalms. Psalm is the Zabur, from the Psalm book. This is what Muslims should have heard about. Muslims should have heard about the term Zabur. It's mentioned in the Quran. It's one of the what we consider holy scriptures, revealed scriptures, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it starts with. And then there is a number of rituals that will be announced as the service goes along. So there's nothing to worry about there.
Yeah, after the Psalms is the call to prayer, Baruch, where people stand, and then Baruch is praise God, and the Yesh will reply. Then they will say the Shema Yisrael, which is listen Israel.
Yeah, right. As far as I remember, they will say a number of blessings beforehand.
Yes.
For the evening, God turns the day into night and the night into day, type of thing. And there is the Shema Yisrael, that is the official, how would I say it? It's like the testimony of faith, so to speak. It's central. It's about Shema Yisrael here, Israel, God. The Lord is one.
Yeah, and that is
of the one God is also a familiar concept. So.
Yeah, and this is framed by blessings. Then there is a moment of silent prayer, which is your person where we stand. So the prayer gesture in Judaism is we stand in the presence of God. There may be a sermon, a speech. Some synagogues have that, some haven't. And then there are a final song and a memory of the deceased, where we also stand.
The prayer in memory of the deceased, yes.
Yes, and a final song. And I think what may be important after the Psalms is a song to welcome Shabbat as a bride. And in the last verse, people stand and turn to the west, to the door. So don't be surprised when suddenly everybody turns around. How do you behave? So when people stand, sit, what do you do when you are in a Jewish service?
Yeah, I would say out of respect, I would stand when people stand. It's not that you participate, but it's a sign of respect that you stand. And sometimes people bow, but you don't have to do that. You can just remain standing and you watch. You're a respectful observer.
After the service or partly in the service, probably it depends. So it may be a moment in the service or after the service. There's something called kiddush, declaring holy, which is a cup of wine and depending on the synagogue, bread. But I think in traditional synagogues, it's usually just a little cup of wine, which may be passed around so that everybody gets a little bit of wine. How do you behave in such a situation then?
Well, as far as I know, in most of the synagogues that I visited, there was not only wine, but there was also grape juice for choice. So then I picked the grape juice and I followed along. So there's nothing wrong with grape juice.
Yeah, and when there's just someone going on, one can ask, what is it?
If there is no grape juice, then I don't have anything. Full stop.
Yeah.
Right? And I just walk and let's see. Also, there's nothing wrong with eating the bread. If there's bread afterwards, if it's shared out. And usually the food that is given out in the synagogue, sometimes they have some food, some snacks after the service. And there's no problem eating that because Jewish rituals are similar, very similar. Food laws are very similar to Muslim ones.
To set apart one day a week for freedom, a day on which we would not use the instruments which have been so easily turned into weapons of destruction, a day for being with ourselves, a day of detachment from the vulgar, of independence, of external obligations, a day on which we stop worshipping the idols of technical civilization, a day on which we use no money, a day of armistice in the economic struggle with our fellow humans and the forces of nature. Is there any institution that holds out greater hope for humanity's progress than the Shabbat? In regard to external gifts, to outward possessions, there is only one proper attitude: to have them and to be able to do without them. On the Shabbat we live, as it were, independent of technical civilization. We abstain primarily from any activity that aims at remaking or reshaping the things of space. Human's royal privilege to conquer nature is suspended on the seventh day. What are the kinds of labor not to be done on the Shabbat? They are, according to the ancient rabbis, all those acts which were necessary for the construction and furnishing of the sanctuary in the desert. The Shabbat itself is a sanctuary which we build, a sanctuary in time.
Maybe as to at the end, one should also say a bit about what is Shabbat, because to visit a service on a Friday evening, Shabbat has started. So the ritual to start Shabbat is lighting 2 candles, which in an Orthodox synagogue is not done in the synagogue, but at home before. And with lighting the candles, we mark a very special time. A famous rabbi, Abraham Joshua Heschel, said that's a sanctuary in time. And we avoid doing things which in the Torah are mentioned to build a sanctuary, like cooking and
Muslims are supposed to know that very well, because Shabbat is mentioned in the Quran, that the Jews have the day of rest and they are not supposed to do any work.
And can you just remind maybe what belongs to, so what would be what you wouldn't do on Shabbat, and so you do it but not in the synagogue where we are with others?
Work.
And that, for example, what tourists normally not know is making photos, writing.
In most Jewish traditions, it's not usual to use electricity on Shabbat, and then you don't take pictures, and of course you don't use mobile phones. And I think it should be self-evident that you switch off your sound at least on your mobile phone when you enter a place of worship. In some mosques, prayer has started, and then beep beep here and beep beep. Thank you very much. No, we don't do that. I mean, please switch off your mobile phone.
Is there anything when you think about it, because there may be things where I'm not aware of what would be important to know? So I think my experience with visitors in services is the service may be foreign because it's all in Hebrew. You may recognize things. Saying the Shema is said very consciously. The Amidah, the main prayer, is said standing.
Maybe if people are familiar with Arabic, it's worthwhile to listen attentively to the Hebrew, because there are so many cognates, there are so many words that are related in Hebrew. And I was in the first Jewish services I attended, I was shocked how many suddenly words, they sound a little bit different, but they turn up. Like salam in Arabic is shalom in Hebrew. But also we say ar-Rahman for one of the how we call God, right? And it is Rahman in Hebrew. And there are so many similarities there, it's worthwhile listening.
Thank you for this spontaneous.
And if you are interested in some more information, this is what you usually find in a synagogue at the front side usually. So you see there is an eternal light, which indicates that there are Torah scrolls behind the curtain. There is a reading desk. It can be in traditional synagogues in the middle of the room. In more modern synagogues, it's closer to the ark. And the Torah scrolls are covered with a curtain. And you see a podest where you go some steps up to the Torah shrine. And usually there are seats, where there are situations where you may sit with the Torah scroll in your arm. Here you have the setting in the Aachen synagogue. So you see there is the Torah shrine and curtain and the reading desk, the eternal light, the seats in the front, and the seats for the congregation. There are little desks, so people keep their prayer utensils there, their prayer books, their prayer shawls, talit, the tefillin. So it may be that you are sitting at a place and somebody may come and say, this is my place. So this is then clear that he has his things there. The inscriptions On the curtain is written, Vihaviotim el har kochi, v'semachtim b'veit tefilati. I will bring them to my sacred mountain and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. That's a quote from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 56, verse 7. And this is a very unusual quote, actually. Really, I've never seen it in another synagogue, this quote. And on the top is a real typical quote that's in most synagogues. It says, Da lifnei mi ata omed, know before whom you stand. That's a quote from the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Berachot 28b. And then you see here 2 tablets. These are actually the Hebrew numbers from 1 to 10. And here in this image you also see the balcony for women. It's an Orthodox synagogue, so women will sit on the balcony. And very briefly to the service we will experience. The core, the heart of every Jewish service is the main prayer, which is called Amidah, which indicates that it's a standing prayer from root amat, to stand. It's said silently. Before the prayer, we recite the Shema Yisrael. This is a quote of 3 Torah passages, 2 from the 5th book and 1 from the 4th book of the Torah. And it's framed by, in the evening, 2 blessings before and 2 blessings afterwards. Here you see the evening parts. You see this is different in the morning prayer, where there is only 1 blessing afterwards, and the text is a little bit different, but we are interested in the evening. And then it ends with the final part, concluding prayers, which is a prayer in memory of the deceased, and the final song. And it starts with an opening part. On Friday evening, this will be 6 psalms, which are the Psalms 95 to 99 and 29, and a song to welcome Shabbat as a bride, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala. In the last verse, the congregation will rise and turn towards the door. So don't be surprised if everything suddenly turns around, then you know, that's the end of the opening part. And then the prayer starts with Baruch Hu. That's the call to prayer. So it means praise God. The congregation will reply, praise God who is to be blessed. And then we say the blessings for the Shema and the main prayer and the concluding prayers. And this will take about 1 hour, 40 minutes to 1 hour. The meaning of Shabbat is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week we live under the tyranny of things of space. On the Shabbat we try to become attuned to holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Shabbat Shalom. This is a wish you may hear at the end of the service in the synagogue. It means have a peaceful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. And the answer to this is that you also wish the other person Shabbat Shalom.